Welcome to Unleash Your Healing Vibes podcast, where we talk about the many generational curses that can plague you and look at ways to break the cycle, free yourself from ancestral trauma, and transform your life to the life that you came here to live. My name is Alicia Ramella, and today's podcast discussion will be on diet and nutrition. I know I took a little break there with my podcast, but I needed to work on the garden. So, anyway, here is a little bit of background for you about me to add in some context about this topic. So, I became a vegetarian last year as part of my practice as a yogi, and because I was just not going to consume any of the store-bought meat. I'm sure many of you understand why, but I'm not going into that today. But at first, it worked out great. But like 7 months or so in, I noticed some not so great symptoms, which I'm looking back, I'm thinking was like leaky gut or yeast overgrowth. So, of course, I knew where to get some enzymes and probiotics, right? And kind of masked the issues. But then I started to do some more research. And here lately, I found some very interesting things. Long story short, not having animal fats and cholesterol, the right, animal cholesterol in my body was actually causing harm to my gut. So then I found out about eating based on your blood type. That was nice. And then I also got into like nutrient deficiencies based on your chemical makeup. And then, being that I am a generational trauma coach, I of course started looking more into eating what your ancestors ate. Which I've always believed was a good place to start for people, especially if they were dealing with trauma. But my research sort of expanded upon the blood type and the ancestral stuff and more kind of on like location, where your ancestors live. So you see like people who live near the ocean, they are more likely to eat ocean fish, right? Back in the day before everything was shipped around and you didn't know where anything comes from. But then, okay, so I got into that, and then I got interested in this book that talks about, I think his name was Weston Price, maybe. I'm not sure. Don't quote me on that. But anyway, this guy studied all of these tribes from around the world and looked at how much better their health was than Americans. And come on, you can look at the data. We have got to all see that this modern American diet is not working, and it's not even food anymore. And anyway, but actually, you know what? As of lately, it appears that there's a global wide attack on our food system. Of course, as a way to protect us from hunger or whatever the current manipulation is. But food isn't going to be God made anymore unless we learn to grow our own or make sure that we can keep the local going and support local. But anyway, so like I'm still not going to be eating any store-bought meat, but I am now adding some very local grass-fed, free range back on the farm, outside in the sun without a bunch of stuff in them. Good for you meats. And I'll tell you what, I have had much more energy than I did while I was a vegetarian. My stomach issues are going down, and it turns out a lot of the wheat, that I was eating was causing like almost what's that called? Gluten issues, but it wasn't. It was probably the glyphosate, But anyway, so the point I'm trying to make is that everybody's body is different, and what you eat can act like medicine for you and your body, but it can act like toxic poison to another person's body. So when you get into nutrition and how essential it is, man, oh man, I mean, I always knew, but I just keep learning more and more every day. See, I studied Ayurveda and eating what your ancestors ate, but now I see it from more of a scientific point of view than, I already had a spiritual and epigenetic, knowledge. But let's just dive into some of the stuff that I've learned recently, and maybe you guys can get some tips here for your own diet. Just remember that diet is unique to each person. And if we all ate a proper diet of real food with nutrients and minerals that our particular body needs, then we wouldn't have a need for doctors. That's for sure. You remember the apple a day keeps the doctor away, right? Okay. So, one thing's for sure, it's all about the soil when it comes to your food's vitamin and mineral content. If you grow your food organically with compost and you do not use synthetic nitrogen fertilizers, then your food's going to contain a much higher mineral and vitamin content than traditional farming methods. I just recently read somewhere that commercially raised oranges were found to have zero vitamin C in them. That's, I mean, not all of them, but in this particular ones that I read about, these oranges had no vitamin C in them. And I think it's all due to the soil. If the pesticides being sprayed kill off the good bacteria in the soil that breaks down these minerals, then the soil, especially here, is just super depleted. Many of the commercial fruits and veggies that you buy are only as good as the soil they were grown in. Many vitamins and minerals are also heat sensitive. So this is why some of them are best suited to eat raw, because cooking them turns the organic into inorganic. And sometimes you cook the vitamins and minerals and the life force straight out of the food. And you're just eating dead matter, no real energy to it. Some vitamins, however, can withstand heat. So steaming is a good way to preserve them. Some methods of canning destroy some of the vitamins. Air drying or sun drying can sometimes preserve nutrients. Some types of cooking can actually increase nutrients, as in the case with bone broth, pickling, and fermenting. Your nutrient requirements are typically way more for good health than what the old standards say. These standards, may keep you from becoming deficient, but that's about it. Look at iodine, for example. It's like a ridiculously low number that they say that we need a day, but iodine's essential for all kinds of things. Thyroid function, certain brain functions. I mean, lots of people are actually deficient in iodine, and this is due to the depleted food source. In the 1920s, and earlier, before refined sugar and processed fake foods were everywhere, there was little coronary heart disease, diabetes, and obesity. You think we just found these diseases on the side of the road one day? Nah, I'm pretty sure it's the fake food. Look into the eating habits of tribes from around the world that do not consume these fake foods, and they eat, what's local to their environment. And there's even other countries where GMO foods are illegal. Like this one particular country that doesn't like to play in the games, he outlawed 5G towers. His people, so that they're safe from the radiation from that. And also no fake food either. Yeah, we're told that it's super great to eat all this fake stuff. Not to mention, many of the popular fake foods that we serve here in America are actually illegal in other countries due to the poisons inside of them that have been proven to increase risks of cancer and other issues. Endocrine disruptors, and don't forget atrazine. I think it was Moms Across America who found pesticides and plenty other terrible things in public lunches as well as fast food restaurants. Okay, so the heart disease industry and diabetes industry, though, they make pretty good money, and don't forget, you can always get some really safe and effective snake venom if you're overweight to cure your problem. But anyway, back to the 20s. They knew how essential nutrition was, although it was increasingly being removed out of college curriculums, even back then. But if you read the nutritional scientists of that time, they knew much more than we're being told, that's for sure. Do you know that your body needs certain nutrients, minerals, and chemicals, to function properly? Chemicals that occur naturally in the world. I'm talking about, mineral chemicals, not man-made chemicals. Big difference. Certain mental health issues and other issues, they actually stem from a lack of certain mineral salts in the body. And this, is fairly common knowledge back in the 1900s, in the early 1900s. And no two people really could eat the exact same thing because everybody's got a different chemical makeup. Some had, from different locations, and they have different blood types, and their ancestors ate different things. What food is good for me may be toxic for you, and so forth. And I'm talking about real food. Fake processed food is toxic for everybody. No one anywhere is getting healthy because they eat refined sugar. What's Cat Williams say? Not never. So, what does this little program pyramid of nutritional goodness have to say? Animal fats and cholesterol are bad. You mean the same cholesterol that helps to keep leaky gut at bay and protects the gut lining? The same cholesterol that helps to regulate serotonin in the brain? The same cholesterol that acts as a precursor to vital corticosteroids and vitamin D is an antioxidant? What do antioxidants do? Oh, they protect our cells and our blood from the damage of free radicals. Everything is an inverse, folks. Salt, bad. No. Sodium is good. Table salt is not, but it's man-made. Natural salt and the salt that's in foods are good for you. Animal fat, bad. Nope. Animal fats are not bad. Remember in the 90s when they got on the TV and they were like, butter's bad. Instead, we need to eat this fake butter made with oil. Remember the commercial? What was it? I can't believe it's not butter. But yeah, you could tell. But butter is made with animal fats, and the animal fats can help to protect our brains from damage from our environment. Sometimes you might have to rethink everything you've been told and look, maybe even just like look at the exact opposite and see if that one makes more sense. But anyway, what I suggest is that you research your family, learn what your ancestors ate and what their ancestors ate, because your DNA is exactly coded for those foods. So like lately I'd been practicing the eating based on your blood type, which is, similar to the ancestry thing, but I'm kind of narrowing it more down too to the stuff that my grandparents ate, their grandparents ate, what was locally available in the Appalachian. And so far it's working for me. This is all anecdotal, but you could do the research and you could find all this stuff. I'm just telling you about it. So I tried being a vegetarian, and it turns out that it didn't work out for me. My gut wasn't being protected. And so, but some people, they do benefit from a vegetarian diet. And that's why everyone is unique. And everybody needs certain foods that match their chemical composition and what they have a lot of and what they have not so much of. And they knew all this back then. And they even categorized people based on their chemical makeup. And you could do their personalities based on the chemical makeup, and it all made so much sense. And then all of a sudden, this stuff got wiped away. So, like, let's say you have an abundance of, like, hydrogen in your body, right? Then you're going to do well to eat foods high in sodium and phosphorus because they all kind of work together. Just like you need magnesium and calcium, to carry out important functions inside the body, they work together as like a team. Well, you can be deficient in minerals, salts, and vitamins, and that is a big old cause of dis-ease, not to be confused with disease. Along with refined sugar, white flour, GMO foods, and, all the antibiotic and meat, whatever, that is not allowed to live out, and they live in like a box, and they don't get sun, and they don't get any vitamin D from the UV rays. This meat is not, this kind of food is just not made the way that it was meant to be made. So it's not going to have the nutrients and the stuff that you need to put in your body. Do you see the image? I'm portraying getting away from nature and eating foods in their natural state and not eating foods in their natural state is what's causing all these issues for people. It's not because you're born without SSRIs or statins. So probably over half of this meat and eggs, from these non-natural animal sources are basically more toxic than good. But we can get local, regular fresh farm eggs. And, I think they even sell these at the store too, in places. But when you know where your food is coming from, it was like right across the street, you saw the environment that the chickens are living in, that kind of thing. And we also need to eat fake food because we're running out of food and water, right? Because like the earth doesn't have an abundance of that. I think the ROI for like planting seeds is like 300 some percent. I'm pretty sure that we could never run out of food if we were just smart. But anyway, maybe we could like stop tearing down trees and plant seeds. I mean, there's like zero reason that we would ever need to eat fake food in any country, anywhere. The earth is abundant as long as we have access to it. All we got to do is move away from the fake food and grow real food. And I don't care if you live in a city, you can get together with your community and have a community garden. You do not need a ton of land to grow good, nutritious foods. I know people that live in cities that grow little teeny tiny boxes on their front porch like they're in a high-rise condo. and they're doing just fine. Plus, they also shop, local at the farmers markets and stuff. I'm sorry, I'm skipping around everywhere, but that's just kind of how my brain works. So now back to the nutrients that we need. Okay, so another one that's good is silicon. So silicon is required for our brain communications in the body. Also, if you lack silicon, you're more at risk of developing like sinus congestion and issues like that. So if you get all like clogged up, maybe you should find some silicon rich foods. If you use your brain a lot, like I do, because I work with people and computers and things, silicon and phosphorus are good to consume every day. I mean, silicon is essential for our hair, our skin, our nails. It's also like great for aging. It slows down aging, especially in the skins. Silicon is good for your bones. The sad thing that is, a lot of silicon is often found in the peelings of foods that people just throw in the trash. Strawberries contain silicon and unpeeled barley. People who have like addictions or have had addictions are in need of a silicon-rich diet, at least for the first year or so. Silicon-rich foods are good for people with menstrual cramps. On a side note, if you have issues like that and are painful, you need to get yourself some raspberry leaf tea, chamomile tea, peppermint tea, and savory tea. And that pain can be much better managed. I've learned from experience. Anyway, if you find yourself feeling a bit anxious, you may want to add silicon to your diet. So cabbage is high in silicon, raw goat's milk, which is good for you, peas, olives, spinach, rice, lettuce, rye bread, and figs. Oh, and cucumbers, yum. I love cucumbers. Beets nuts, too. Remember beets nuts? They grow on trees. Oats are good, too, if you can find a source that doesn't spray chemicals all over them. And there are probably a couple of small businesses out there that do offer that, but if you can find someone that's growing it locally, it'd be better. Okay, like next, I want to mention fluorine, not to be confused with fluoride, fluorine with an N. It used I found in the 1900s, it mentions that fluorine was really good at preventing dentist bills, and it works as a cleaning crew of the body, so to speak. And fluorine helps to preserve teeth, hair, nails, and bones. Working alongside silicon, fluorine helps teeth and bones to become stable and strong. Like silicon, fluorine keeps us looking young. Same as with like any of these nutrients, you can have too much or too little in the body. Certain mineral issues even came from some of these like minerals nutrient deficiencies, not imbalances in the brain because God left out SSRIs. Mostly, no, that's not what they thought. So anyway, if you suffer from like tooth decay or bone decay or even have poor eyesight, you would benefit from adding fluorine to your body. Bone broth is high in fluorine, red cabbage and regular cabbage, cauliflower, cod, goat cheese, sauerkraut, sprouts, spinach, all have fluorine in them. Oh, and watercress too. So, okay, so we know that we need iodine, and I'm pretty sure that eating table salt's not going to give you the amount you need in your body. But we need iodine for our pineal gland and thyroid functions. When the thyroid isn't working properly, you may have nervous system issues and brain issues. Lack of iodine in children can lead to bone metabolism and defective teeth. Iodine helps to keep the body clean, another cleaning one, and it helps to destroy toxins that are harmful to your brain that cross over the blood-brain barrier. So you can bet that most people are actually deficient in iodine. You can't get the same amount in the foods as we could in the old days. Back basically what I said, with the soil and everything. But it's best, to supplement. But you can find some good brands out there, and you can find iodine in some seafood, seaweed, salmon, lobster, cod, and there's a little bit in frog legs. Okay, so the thing we need to do is take our power back from convenience. Our ancestors worked hard for their food, and with their food, they blessed their food. They grew it. They connected to it. They were grateful for it. They prepared it. They used every last bit of the food. They made bone broth, which is highly beneficial for us to eat, especially if you're doing like a detoxification or if you got really sick. We must get back to having a relationship with our food and with nature. If we don't care what goes into our vessels, then we're going to be full of disease, heavy metals, toxins, cancer, parasite, and a host of other issues. It all boils down to eating the proper foods, and I think we should try, to eat how our ancestors ate. We also need to get a variety. Like pizza and hot dogs every day is not going to be the answer. We need to get back into eating wild game like deer and bison, and I don't mean like the commercial that was on TV where they had some wild game. No, like real wild, whatever. And I read that something about sawdust was allowed into our food. Why? Well, like a certain amount of sawdust. Okay, because when I'm out in the garden, I always drop sawdust on my tomatoes. I mean, it's just, I don't know. The prices for the fake food is even more funny. Like the prices for this food is going sky high. So now you're going to eat this horrible toxic stuff for your body that makes you sick, but you're also going to pay ridiculous amounts for it. But if you would just become self-sufficient, you would not spend that kind of money. There's like wild plants and mushrooms and animals that we could all just go back to living on. Real fish, seafood, turtles, frogs, all that stuff. Our ancestors ate all of those things, and they were 10 times healthier than we are. You don't need like donuts and processed bologna all day. Maybe your body would rather have freshly caught wild bass or some dandelion. The truth of the matter is, if we don't get back to the old ways in many ways, but nutrients and diet's one of them, we're going to be so toxic and so full of inorganic materials and metals and graphene oxide and other man-made stuff too. Find out like what your grandparents ate. See what they were eating in the early 1900s in your family. They were spiritually fit as well back then, and I don't think they were all dying of turbo cancer. So perhaps we take the time to go back to the local farmer's market, pay a bit more for the food, and cook it instead of throwing processed crap down our growing children's bodies all the time. Kids' endocrine systems are a mess, from the microplastics and everything in the bottled waters and plastic, just period. You remember when food and milk used to come in glass? Well, I do, because I collect the old glass. And I know that everything was glass back then, because, I'm a dork that collects old glass. So why do we want everything in plastic? If we get to growing our own food and we spend 30 minutes cooking it and making meals and not throwing all the good parts of the food away and giving our developing children good nutrition, we're going to start building healthier and thriving and stronger and more independent human beings. I've read books from all sorts of these renowned doctors of the 20s or the 1900s, 1910s, even back to the 50s or so, up to the Great Depression. They all taught patients how to be healthy. They used medicinal herbs and foods. I have a ton of these herb books, and they ate every one of them. Some of them came from the Cherokee Indians and what they gave to their people and that they used. These people they were good at what they were doing. Their job was to teach people how to take care of themselves. And 9 times out of 10, if they would like suggest a change in a diet, and most of the people's stuff would clear up. If someone had a parasitic infection, the doctor would then put them on a fasting regimen or perhaps a water fast. It's not that they were not smart. These people were, on the contrary, they were super smart because they learned everything about the environment around them, and they knew what was good for you and what wasn't. Almost every plant was edible, except for the ones that were poisonous, but they knew all that too. They learned nutrition, and the doctors, even if they went to medical schools, they didn't just learn about pharmacology back then. They learned some nutrition. And if they didn't have it in the curriculum, people studied under other professionals and stuff that were treating, people with proper diet. Eating the right foods will not heal a broken leg. So, there's a great place in the world for doctoring and life-saving practices. But, as far as some of these things and some of our mental health issues, I think that we're onto something when it comes to these herbs and plants of the planet and growing your own. And that's exactly what we need to become sovereign and have health freedom. When the big industries came around, the goal became different. It wasn't so much about keeping you nutritious anymore. It was, not. But anyway, so they knew, that we needed natural immunity, not fake immunity. If we don't get back to eating a more variety of foods like our ancestors, we need to eat like turtles and frog's legs, which, I haven't tried, so. But I know I want to when I get a chance, and I will. But we need to start growing our own food. The trade for convenience for our health was just a bad mistake, and we need to whip it around. Ever since I started a couple years ago working on local meat, local eggs, growing food and vegetables, shopping organic, some of that stuff, there's just no way around, But ever since that I started doing that, I've been much healthier. My kids have been much healthier. These books talked about how we need organic forms of food and mineral salts, not inorganic or man-made. They even talked about this drugstore salt, is what they called it, not being as good for the body as natural sodium. Why is that? Well, they knew everything was a vibration. They knew everything was a frequency. They knew that if we took care of our health by eating right, they knew about God. They knew what life force energy was. They knew what killed the life force energy, what didn't, and why it was better to eat some things raw and some things not raw, And now all of a sudden, if you talk about diet, it's woo woo or, PC principle, or you're an extremist if you talk about eating natural, healthy foods. I mean, I just think that if everybody who's been programmed, which we all have, just took our power back, and you could start with diet, you know, like if some kind of space weather event would hit, and we were all forced to go back into time to the old ways, and everybody was forced to connect back to nature, and there'd be no EMF frequencies and chemicals and heavy metals sprayed over the skies, and the surveillance wouldn't be like it is. And television and phones and everything would be turned off. People would live in harmony with the land and the animals again, and we'd all come together as a community. And people would stop fighting about their programmed beliefs. But, I think it's all going to get torn down. And so hopefully one of these days I see a vision for it. We're going to have a much better way to live. Okay, so I'm going to offer some homework if you want. Just if you feel like you want to make a difference in your health, just cook one meal for your family this week and put all your love and all your energy into it. Support a local farmer's market this week instead of ordering pizza. Just one little small change toward a better health and a better life. Well, you'll just be surprised at how much better you'll start feeling. Man, when I quit drinking pop, it was like I found a whole new body and jumped into it. I mean, I'm in better shape now at 35 than I was at 23. I mean, it's not just because I don't drink pop. There's a lot of toxins that are no longer in my body, but I'm not around toxic people. Toxic people will drain you of your energy and keep you in a lower state of vibration, similar like parasites do. You have to work on your internal and external environment. But anyway, now I've got more stamina, more everything, more gray hair too. But hey, that's cool. I'm fine with myself. But y'all can get just one little step for your health this month and see if it does anything for you, maybe a little more exercise. It doesn't have to be diet. I just think that's a really good place to start. Get you a self-care routine, practice better eating habits, remove toxic people from your environment, and just sit back and watch your life change for the better. Your eyes may even get more magnetic and brighter because you're cleaning up your internal and external environments slowly but steadily. Okay, y'all, unleash your healing vibes this week, and I'll catch you later.